Chapter 2. Dreams of the Old Fathers. It is by no means an irrational fantasy that, in a future essence, we shall look upon what we think our present existence as a dream. Edgar Allan Poe. Part 1. Port Teeman. It's the next night and I'm having the old dream again. I'm out on the river with the kids. The storm kicks up out of nowhere like it always does. We're paddling for the shore. It isn't too late. Not yet. That part comes later. And then I feel water climbing up my legs, like my kayak's got a leak. I look down into a dimly lit metal tube and see fluid rushing in, rising up over my chest.
And how shall I breathe with thee gone?
No, it's her. The alien woman. Her eyes are squeezed tight again, and I can feel the same stubborn, irrational fear. It can't hurt her, so why does she feel like she's about to drown? And then I snap awake, shooting over oily, storm-tossed seas again. I see some lights ahead through the rain-torn mist. A lot of them. Like a wall of little lamps getting brighter as the sound of the surf builds. They're strung out across the face of gargantuan sea cliffs. Wow, can't even see the top. I bet they go up a long way, though. There's a line of caves arching along the skirt of the cliffs, and they got decorated pilings like sparkling teeth across them. Lots of teal and opal kindshell. I'm headed for a thick bamboo water gate. One last quick look at the cliffs above before I'm through. It's a hanging village crammed with strange basket-like huts, catwalks, and narrow halls built all over a rock face dotted with caves. Then I'm through the water gate and inside a subterranean harbor full of phosphorescent light and soft music. There's an uneven line of elaborate kindshell buildings raised up on pilings with flat-bottomed barges bumping in their slips beneath. The ceiling gets pretty high up in some spots, but you can see they've studded it with shells that sparkle like big opal stars in the water's glow. I come near the boardwalk and start to notice the detail. Like an old market in the Mediterranean, you can just tell this place has been lived in for a long time, and there's nothing space-age here. I can see some locals poking around, but other than the sounds of a sleepy port and the beautiful harp-like music drifting on the air, it's pretty quiet. And now I'm over the rail, wondering what this place is and what I'm doing here as I float down the boardwalk. And then I spot a weird droopy building stuffed back into an alcove in the flowing cavern wall. Looks like a cornered crab with long front claws wrapping around a courtyard. One holds a spear draped in a white flag. The other's got a shield with a cartoonish painting of the Archon, sipping off a mug with a shitty grin on his face. But he's painted smoky and charred, like he just bailed out of a house fire. His curly handlebar mustache has a candle burning on the tip. He must be popular here. There's a boathouse attached to the crab with an unusual ship hauled up. It's like a double-decker canoe mixed with a Greek trireme, with a high raised prow. It's maybe 35 feet long. And the prow looks like a moth head with wide bug eyes for portholes in the sides of a small hut tucked up near the front. Its thick wooden feelers spiral together and curve way up over the deck. But down at the base, there's an Anunnaki gal carved with generous proportions straddling the horn like she's taking it out for a ride. Ropes run from the wide feelers to the boom, but instead of sails, I see lots of nets. Trophies and supplies are hung all over it. There's even a pair of shrunken heads with their eyes stitched up like you'd see in a witch doctor's hut. Reminds me of some kind of safari ship, and I can hear someone snoring near the back. Then I spot a little cherry glowing up in the boom. One of the crew relaxing up there, maybe. Nice little spot. And now I'm drifting through the gate into a little outdoor cabana beneath the second story of the crab. Like it was standing over the top. A net drooping with colored glass lanterns hangs from its belly, and I see this ugly-looking centipede thing straight out of my darkest nightmares laid out over the top of the bar like an awning. It's at least 8 feet long, with huge bulbous eyes, glossy black shell, and green markings. Someone stuffed a bottle into his horrid mouth hole. I saw that thing move. I swear Anyway, it's got a crest like a cobra, splayed out and covered in red scales. And when one of the patrons gives the bar's bamboo pole a tap, the thing starts to rattling like snakes. Ugh, creepy. Between the crab's rear legs, there's a long, low hall that meanders behind the boathouse on pilings, and I'm drifting over toward a group sitting near the curtain that leads in. A pair of redheads that could be brother and sister are sitting on cushions around a big clay jug with some long spoons leaning on the rim. There's a particularly big fellow with them. He's got his back to me, but I see 2 long red tails from a headband wrapped around a bald head running down his back. Ah, so we meet again, stranger. He's telling some kind of joke or story, animating it with his hands. I can't see his face, but all 3 are rough-looking characters with weathered grayish skin, sturdy, well-used earth-tone traveling gear with an Aztec or Greek look to it, maybe. I think they're sailors or adventurers. The brother and sister wear heavy torques of jade and thick braids, and they've got swirling tattoos all over their bodies. He's pouring a ladle into his sister's mouth. It looks like beer, and they seem happy. In fact, the sister shoves her brother and then plants a sloppy kiss on the bald one. And then a grizzled old soldier in red and gold bug armor with thick arms, a butt chin, and a blunt, honest face pushes through the curtain and rumbles something toward the big bald one at the table. Among some guttural gibberish, I hear, that big one in the headband looks over, tosses his ladle in the pot, and then rises to his feet. I guess that's Marduk. This guy is huge. I don't remember him being so tall. Thick shoulders and big hands, too. He's got a mantle of scales, a wide sash, and a skirt of chitin around his thighs. Thick kine armor on his ankles, and no shoes. Pale, chalky skin covered in scars. And just before he follows that burly-looking soldier into the back, he turns to say something to the redheads, and I get a good look at him. Not the prettiest fellow. He's got a heavy brow and a wide bulbous hooked nose between tiny slits for eyes spread out wide over thick cheekbones. Everything angular, cruel, and ugly, and not one hair on his body that I can see. Still, he seems friendly enough, and he gives his friends a sly wink before pushing through. There's a fire-lit hall back here. Thick smoke and soft music. A few locals chatter at tables, but at the end it opens into a wider room with a long table running down the middle, and fire bowls hanging from the rafters. I catch up to the big guy, and as I'd hoped, the hypnagogics begin to fire. There's a deep rumbling voice in my thoughts, and the room brightens as the reek of cheap beer and the tides fill my nose. Marduk. Once he was a legend among legends. Now he's an outcast, scraping out a living at the edge of the havens. But for the moment anyway, his mood is good. Things are finally going right for a change. And just before they enter the back, the one leading him grumbles in a heavy Nazarene accent.
Aye. No quick moves around the watch.
Marduk shakes his head blankly as if the accent were just too much, then pushes into the hall with muttering behind him. The long table back here is crowded with a couple dozen grim-looking men hunched over their drinks and eyeing Marduk as he approaches. One of them snickers.
Hey, look! Captain Crazy's back!
Marduk mutters under his breath as one watcher turns from some others at the far end and fixes a scowl on him. Silver and red glint from rare metal armor. Kind of like Ramiel's back in the Anonolith, it looks a little like a Greek panoply, all plated in that alien quicksilver metal. And he's holding a strange double-pronged lance of the same stuff, easy under an arm. All the metal is crude-looking, more like salvage stitched together than anything forged. Marduk's eyeing the armor. It's worth a fortune. A fortune he probably spent on liquor and bad choices sometime between now and their last deal. And as much as some of these bridgemen would love to make off with it, this one doesn't have much to worry about. His solar is marked with a red 3. These triarchs are liked well enough, and the Amar family still holds a lot of power on the cliffs, even if this watchlord lives beneath the anonolith. I can give you 12 solars. Tally sticks, not coin.
How the hell am I supposed to cash a tally stick, Heavy? I don't get to the Archon's counting houses much since you assholes kidnapped my niece, John.
A few of the watchers are snickering around the table, but a twitch of the watchlord's fingers and they go silent. As for him, he doesn't respond to the strange comment. Nobody does anymore. Once Marduk's so-called niece turned the wrong color, all his conspiracy theories went up in smoke. The watchlord's helm is tucked under an arm, and his salt and pepper buzz cut is as sharp and well-trimmed as the rest of him. Asshole's probably never smiled in his life. Gaunt features and gray eyes as hard as flint stare back, waiting.
Fine. I'll take it.
The soldier grunts, holding out a bundle of strange broken sticks. And then he says, I brought the turret.
Oh no, I don't take the queen out in the storms. She stays put until early tide.
No, get it loaded or the deal's off. Marduk rolls his beady eyes.
You in a hurry or something? Old Gunda can handle his own gates, Ja.
Pyr doesn't respond. Finally, the stranger throws his arms up and says,
I can hire some cheaper Gigi over at the docks to clear the queen and haul it up to your bog. Gonna cost a few extra jits, though. Sneaks around here steal anything ain't nailed down. But I tell you what.
There's a grating racket outside, like a poorly balanced propeller spinning, and a sudden shrieking laugh. Violence erupts out in the cabana, and I feel charge in the air. A savage howl, and there's a loud snap. A woman screams. Marduk spins, running for the curtain, and the watchers all snap to their feet. There's a moist impact, and the propeller noise cuts off. Someone's gurgling.
You're all under arrest!
Marduk reaches the entry just as Daz stumbles through, her face blackened and her beautiful red hair singed. Her eyes are wide and her hands grip a torn and bleeding neck. Marduk catches her even as her brother Goss careens through behind, getting caught up in the curtain and tumbling to the floor, tangled in it like a bloody shroud. Then some nutjob in tatters comes charging in, brandishing what looks like the underside of a rickety lawnmower. It's sparking and cracking as it sprays hot blood across the jam, coming back up to speed over the maniacal laughter of the guy holding it. It's one of those wizards like the maestro back in the tower. There's light sucking down into his head through a rat's nest of hair. A crazy, mismatched bug mask and filthy, tattered robes blow wildly around his skinny legs. Two more lunatics come bumping in behind. First one's brandishing a wooden sword with obsidian saw teeth, and when he spots Marduk, his one good eye lights up as the other drifts off toward the corner of the room. There's a hopper head slumped over his skull like a helmet, and dregs of filthy dark hair spill out from its dopey flaps. His buddy has a barbed spear, and the tip is red and smoking. There's a gap-toothed grin on his skull-painted face, but his melts away too when he notices the fence of bronze spears leveled at them.
What are you Anzu vermin doing in Port Demon?
The watchlord's quicksilver lance shines with an angry blue light that reminds me of the stranger's magic club. The lawnmower squeals to a stop, and the two behind her throwing down their weapons, already begging.
It was him. Don't blame me.
It's not my fault.
But not the wizard. He's full of righteous fury. All three are drunk and here for murder. Marduk is holding Dez while an unusual watcher rushes over, carrying something like Iovita's medicine bag. Well, he goes to work on her. That wizard slings his weapon like a shield, and then rips out a small clay tube, holding it aloft triumphantly.
Oh, no. We got a writ on that one, Heavy. See here?
He's jabbing a filthy claw at that clay cylinder.
Dead or alive is what it says, do you see?
Marduk still hasn't moved. His eyes are on Dez's blackened face, smeared red as she gurgles through her last terrified moments. That tattooed medic is trying to keep pressure on her neck, but Marduk knows she's gone. His eyes stray to her brother, whose blood pools beneath the soiled curtain. The Watchlord's reading that writ, his eyes tracing over small marks on the outside of the tube, a deep scowl painted on his face.
You see, from the Archon, dead or alive. Now go away, Pierre. You're not needed here.
The Triarch's stern brows furrow.
You idiots, this is impossible. He was here showing me his cargo hold when this happened.
He knows the jungle. Quick to run. Who cares? Step aside, Watcher. I am Zardan, the Master of Wind. And I shall put an end to this filthy wretch.
He seethes at Marduk.
How dare you touch my beloved Archon?
No, you aren't taking this apostate anywhere. I'll take him to the Anonolith myself, and the High Justice will hear my words.
Dez is gone, along with her brother, as these people argue about who's bringing Marduk where. But there's some ugly things going on in his head. It's part anger and part panic, like everything is falling apart again. His bald head is still bowed. Her eyes are vacant, frozen in the grim final moments of her life, but Marduk's have moved on. He's looking from the Watchers to that pencil-necked wizard, arguing with Pyr. Then at the bloody spear in Skullface's hand. He's calculating, measuring distance. And then there's a hand on his shoulder. Don't. The Watchlord's voice is hard. Marduk's muscles tighten and swell. Knuckles crack as two great fists ball. Those fists are bigger than most people's heads.
You'll get your chance. I'll take you to the Anonolith and clear your name. And then I'll see you get your own writ with them on it. You're going to get a writ with that one too.
He nods his head toward the insufferable wizard without looking up. The Triarch just frowns.
He'll be punished.
Marduk smirks.
One of us will be punished, Watcher. You want your blissful daddy, thrown from his pleasant dreams? Filthy apostate like him?
Spittle fills the air as he spits the words out, sneering at Marduk.
Not even Indris get to murder,
replies Pyr after a moment, and then he speaks to someone over his shoulder, the big wide-chinned warrior.
Go, drag them to the Amar. Tell Jagon to hold them until I send the High Justice's doom.
His Watchers manhandle all three out to the sanctimonious outrage of this Indris.
Trouble follows you, son of a Solarid. I'll see your loved ones are given rights and prepared. The Archon's justice will be yours.
Marduk doesn't say a thing. No nod or protest. He just follows quietly as they lead him out onto the boardwalk. And when they take him past the strange safari ship, his narrow eyes flick up to the shadows near the Jungle Queen's boom. Somehow I know this guy isn't looking for any of the Archon's justice. But then things start to get strange and dark again. And as they march the giant off, I start to zone out to the sound of the surf and that gentle music on the air. Chapter 2, Part 2, Iana, the Red Hill.
I'm having a strange dream this time. Yeah, but it's not mine.
This is Orion's dream. You remember that wounded soldier we left with his wife and daughter? That one. He's in a shield wall, locked arm in arm, side iron Gunder. A legend, a hero, and Orion's father. By the end of this dream, just a few moments away, he'll be dead. But Orion doesn't know it yet. He's eager for the fight, eager to step out from the Iron Septarch's shadow and prove himself. He should have known better when none of the other sovereigns would join his father against the Archon's madness. But Orion was young and fierce, confident in his men, confident and careless with their lives. He should have known better when his house's traitorous Indris chose the Archon's black magic and illusions for their own blood Ashari. But Orion would prove their tricks were no match against cold iron and true hearts. He should have known better when the crackle of sparks and the lick of flames rose up from behind the purple's ranks, and the last of the hope left his father's eyes. But Orion expected a miracle. After all, they were in the right, and everyone in the Five Havens knew it. Boom. 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 The rams are at the upper gates. Their lines are already starting to break as that witch's drone rises from behind Ramiel's center. Fear is rank in the air. But most of all, he should have known when his young wife begged him not to go. Oh, he assured her it wouldn't come to battle, and even if it did, the other Dumashari were sure to join with him and put an end to the madness. But Orion was wrong. And now all he can hear is the hammering at the gates, as everything he loves is about to be turned into a memory. A little stubby hand swats him on the nose and forehead, until her persistence finally pulls him out of a poppy-induced slumber. Raised voices. Something's wrong. That's no ram against the gates of Hurius. It's an armored fist against the door of his bride's Ashar Hall. Her father's home.
In the name of the Archon, open your door, Patriarch!
How could he have been this stupid? Why did he come here? He groans at the pain but sits up and tugs Pelagia onto the bed, holding her protectively for a moment as Iovita appears in the doorway. Her knuckles are white on the jamb. She's got his spear and her face is taunt with fear.
The Watchers, Orion! They want in!
His bleary eyes go from his wife to little Pelagia as the enormity of his stupidity begins to sink in. What has he done? This is his wife's Ashar Hall. It's a simple clan of tradesmen. Only a handful of spearmen trained to poke tigs from the nets and scare thieves. They can't fight Watchers. He grunts in pain, his eyes on the spear, reaching for it weakly.
Ita, no.
Her father makes the choice for them and opens the door. Orion grips the bar of his sick bed and hauls himself to his feet. He reaches for Iovita, for the spear, gasping through the pain.
Ita, the spear! The spear!
His voice is a croak. Iovita is watching her father thrown to the floor. I can hear the clatter of armor as heavy boots stomp their way into the hall.
Where's the traitor, old man?
A harsh voice. The old man's smart enough to cooperate. Then they see Iovita with his spear, and Orion's blood freezes. He's stumbling across the room while little Pelagia starts to whimper on the bed, frightened at all the noise.
Are you resisting, girl? You going to stick the Archon's watches with that spear?
She drops it. But a backhand knocks beautiful Ayavita to the floor just the same. Orion is stumbling forward through a wash of agony, crying out. I'm here! I surrender! The wicked-looking watchlord growls and motions a pair of his brutish diarchs forward, and they throw him to the ground and begin kicking him savagely. Somewhere over the impacts, the orange watchlord's voice.
Orion, heretic and traitor. By the authority of the Ashar Council, I will accept your surrender for fair arbitration, or deliver your head in payment for your crimes.
When the beatings stop, Orion is fading in and out of consciousness. Silence to screaming. Silence to screaming. When they drag him from the hall, all he can hear is Ayovita struggling and crying out, and little Pelagia screaming for her mother. He's wailing almost incoherently at the unimaginable pain in his heart. It's all his fault. He did this. The kind-plated beard and sour breath of the watchlord is an inch from his face now, holding Orion's head up by the hair in his armored fist.
What do you think happens to little Ashar commoners who harbor enemies of the Archive,
You can hear laughter in his voice. This guy's getting sadistic pleasure from this.
Jagura are real hungry today. When you stand before the Ashar Council, heretic, just remember what fine and upstanding watchers came to arrest you. Unless you'd like your sweet little wife and brat to feed the spiders with you, eh?
As a pair of thugs drag Orion away, the watchlord chuckles again, steps back into the house. The door seems to boom shut, and when the echo fades, he loses consciousness. Thank God. Everything goes dark for me, too. But it doesn't last. I wake up maybe a couple hours later into a miserable darkness full of fearful whispers and the sound of wounded and dying men. There's a woman weeping not far away. Orion's here, but I didn't see him at first, even though he's right beside me. When the hypnagogic spikes come, my only wish is that I were somewhere else. Yeah, these are feelings I've tasted. He's in hell, and his mind's running through 1,000 dark possibilities. With that pain comes Orion's sensitive Anunnaki eyesight. And now I can see broken, pale men all around in the brighter darkness. All that's left of the ironcladded. Someone's beside him, a slight figure in simple brown robes under a deep hood and white silken veil. She looks like one of the 7 singers from the mausoleum. There's a dim auroral ribbon just visible above her and flowing into the crown of her head, like a halo. A small woman with wide hazel irises that glow with that strange phosphorescence through an elaborate butterfly mask. She doesn't say a word as she works. These quiet priestesses they call the virtues don't speak much, and when they do, they're only allowed to whisper thanks to a bunch of vows revolving around their great mother religion. Orion probably knows more, but his mind's too much of a mess for me. And now it's starting to get weird as a strange euphoria comes over him. Like his whole body's going numb in a pleasant way. His thoughts blur into a daze, and I hear a faint sizzle. The Indris's hands are together, but her forefingers are held out, and a bright spark burns between them. She's moving it along that wound, like she's cauterizing it. Like me, Orion is staring at the small woman stupidly as she works her magic, or whatever it is. There's a pair of young ladies beside holding Orion's arms cautiously, but I doubt the poor bastard can feel much, even without this anesthetic or whatever it is she gave him. The poor guy's head lolls to the side, and he's murmuring something in a thick, slurring voice. He's asking her not to hurt his family anymore. He's about to say more, but then he remembers the threat hanging over them, and I can feel his heart seize when he realizes what he's done. There's hot tears of frustration and fear burning in his eyes as he stares off into the dark. That young virtue is staring at him now, her glowing eyes unblinking. There's something in her expression. It could be shock or pity, but I can't say. Not behind that mask. But soon enough, she snaps out of whatever it was and goes back to work. Once his wounds are cleaned and dressed, the young woman stands with her sisters and joins several more by the door of this dank dungeon. Orion can hear one of the slimy Diarch jailers lying his ass off to the sister.
Oh, yes, yes. I make good and certain the accords of Ashar are strictly followed, my virtue.
Orion watches her swallow it. The moment the singers are gone, these thugs will be back to their sport. They've been taking turns with that sad woman that decided to fight with the ironcladded against his father's wishes. Orion can't even think of her name. One more black stain on his soul. She was a famous athlete who added her voice to the cause, using her celebrity to rally the Ashari. Orion supported her, telling his much older and much wiser father why she should have as much right to fight as any of them. He wasn't wrong, and as usual, father relented, and the mighty hunter got his way.
No, you're not wrong, fool boy. The price of your damn idealism could be more than you could afford to pay. If you're lucky enough to be the one who pays it.
The moment those heavy doors clang shut behind the last of the Sisters of Virtue, the deuces are right back to making sure she pays. In fact, the only one who's certain not to have to pay down here is Orion. They need him patched and looking well treated so he can stand before the Ashar Council and be judged. Appearances are very important on the wheel. Ryan's trying to think of that girl's name. God help him, if only to have some reprieve from the screams of his wife and baby. No luck. Lycos and Kermack are sitting across from him. Neither spoken since they brought Orion in earlier. Even Kermack's hot temper cooled when he saw the dead terror in the young warrior's eyes. Both withdrew into their own dark thoughts soon after. Now each of them wait for the end in their own way. And then someone moves up beside Orion. Sad, crazy eyes and long red braids. Not a wound on him. Orion's seen him a few times in the ranks. A new recruit, Hardener or Harrow, something like that. Short and stocky with swirling blue tattoos. He was one of Marduk's crew until he was offered a small fortune to scout for the ironcladded. And unlike the rest, this one seems happy to see Orion.
Psst. I saw your father die fighting, spear in hand.
Orion doesn't respond. Of course his father died well. Old Gundar was always the best of them.
I saw you running too. I'd call you a coward, but I already took a knee by then.
He grins a crooked smile full of wooden teeth behind thick lips and a wispy red beard. Dark looks from the nearby men, especially Kermack, who was ordered from the battle to protect Orion. The scrappy recruit pays them no mind and continues in a cheerful whisper.
Good. That was my job, right? Now then, you make sure to head for the spot once they let us go, eh? These fine watchers might all want to see you feed the Jagura, but not your daddy. And lucky you, he had friends. Now, quick as a hopper yonder tide, and
He adds with an ugly grin.
no heroics.
A red-braided warrior pats Orion's cheek before sliding off into the dark. There's chuckles coming from around him. Whatever illusion of respect these watchers once paid him, it's gone. Now there's nothing but the miserable darkness, and the sound of that poor woman paying for Orion's idealism as his wife and daughter scream in his head. Chapter 2, Part 3, in Nonolith, Somewhere in Time.
How shall I breathe with thee gone?
Sharp, fast breathing and the sound of water rushing into a metal coffin startles me awake into a dark and windy cavern. There's one of those vessels, like the monolith she was in, standing right in front of me, dark and dim beneath a layer of grime and lichen. There's remains scattered around the dark, and I see bone light up with each flash of the lightning coming in through a tear in the far wall. 2, 3 dead humanoids. They've been here a while, and they're almost completely covered in moss. I see some kind of wire mesh tangled up in their bones. They were my people, and this is long ago. Feels strange, like I'm not all here yet. I'm watching in a kind of trance as a thick carpet of moss and fungus fills the place, as though time were flying by. Occasionally, something skitters past. Kine.
You've been here before. Does it look familiar, Thomas?
Soon the moss light is bright enough I can see this place has the same shape as the amphitheater room in the Anonolith. So we're back here. The storms come and go, but to me it's like 1 part strobe light and 2 parts dim purple, as ages seem to fly past. And then comes a day when the wind howls, and a driving rain batters that tear in the wall. The lightning comes so fast the sky's just white, and thunder shakes the Anonolith. Oh, it's one hell of a storm. It's like nothing I've heard. The tower shakes and the wind howls. But when it goes, dim lights begin to creep out of the gloom. The monolith vessel starts to glow like last time I saw it. The only thing that's here to see it is the kind. It doesn't last long, and then it's gone. Interesting. After that, things go back to normal for a while, and I start drifting off, wondering about the number 42 again. But then one day the kind begin flooding in, and I hear a commotion coming up the tower. These things are ugly, spindly-looking monsters with 4 long legs and a small pair of hooked arms tucked up beneath big triangular heads, with neck crests and snapping mandibles. Now they're wild and tattooed warriors chasing after, dressed in the vibrant kind finery of their clans and marked with the crooked golden solar. They're brandishing clusters of that wrinkly orange fungus like a cross against vampires, and it's working. Soon they've burned out or put the last of them to the spear. Then come groups of Anunnaki to clear this place out, filling it with their trophies and culture, with their music and voices. Gorgeous woodwork and civilization slowly take shape here. They leave offerings at the base of the vessel and hang the effigy of an exaggerated fertility goddess from it, a voluptuous pregnant woman covered in kind glitter. And now there's a sisterhood that sings to it every day. Strange though, when I look into the glass window of the vessel, I don't see anyone. No alien woman drowning, no warm-colored blot. Nothing, it's empty. But the aliens come here to dance anyway, and others to chant or sing. Many just to sit in silence. And it feels like years pass, and I see less and less of them. Just the same small group of robed acolytes who tend this place, and the chorus of women who sing to the vessel. Occasionally visitors make the long climb, but usually for what look like weddings. But I can always hear the bells of a bustling civilization below. Then one quiet eventide, as most sleep to the sounds of hopper song, I hear the winching of the lifts. A single young bookish fellow with a long face and simple scribe's headdress, taking a rumbling basket lift up to whatever job he has in the giant crystal ball up top. Feels like I've watched him do it 100 times. But this time, not long after his basket is finally pulled through the ceiling, I start to hear wind whipping outside, the rumble of thunder. As the Great Mother begins to draw the eyes of a jealous titan, this one climbs up toward his destiny. You recognize him, Tom? He's a little younger, but about to stumble across something that was lost a long, long time ago. The thunder is rolling across the tower as the mysterious voice fades. He did look familiar. A long, somber face. But now I'm more concerned with the growing storm brewing up when the purple should be calm. The weather here seems to be predictable. Always 11 days of calm purple followed by 7 days of storms. But this storm's timing is off, and it's getting stronger. A lot stronger. Pretty soon thunder starts rolling over the tower, and lightning flashes. It doesn't take long before it's just one white fire blazing through the balcony doors. A second cataclysm breaks across the land. The beautiful woodwork is ripped away as hurricane winds scream through the jagged hole, and the tower lurches and groans. A hellish howling wind is throwing debris around this place as if a tornado was coming right for the tower. And with a gasp, I snap awake and quiet. The storm's gone. It's been gone for a lifetime. But I'm in the same place, staring straight through the glass of the monolith, straight into a hazy, olive-colored blot, floating placidly in murky waters. In my dream, she's an alien woman who looks more like them. This one looks more like us. Past a fence of spun silver, out on the wooden steps of the amphitheater, I see one of those sisters of virtue. Well, it's that same one from below. The one that was working on Orion. And now she's way up here, sitting cross-legged and meditating like a monk. Her round face is framed by thick hair buns, wrapped in gold netting. She's wearing tribal torques and scalework over her brown robes. Then I notice the faint ribbon of light over the top of her head. As she hums, coils of incense smoke blow into tiny curls, revealing a faint shimmer in the air around her that seems to breathe with her. Oh, look at that. She's got a few little bronze spheres levitating out in front of her. It's a little unsteady, and her brows crease, like keeping them there isn't easy to do. It's fascinating to watch, though. And the next thing I know, she's right next to me. Then the sharp spikes of hypnagogic sound start coming as we connect. The room brightens with her sensitive eyes, and a flood of familiarity saturates my surroundings. This is a place she knows well. This connection feels different than Orion's. It's a feeling or flavor closer to Marduk, but it doesn't have that strange shadow hovering over it. This is young Erish, newest of the immortal Sisters of Virtue, pacifists and healers who sing the sacred ravings to the one of the 7 singers whose voices ring out over the anonymous loudspeakers. And right now her lips murmur a quiet whispering chant to the the Great Mother.
Sutra Yanan, Sutrahi Yatan, Sutrahi Yatnan, Hammam, Hamma Argal.
The red sash around her waist tells me she's from the same house as the Watchlord Peer, a triarch, and today she's come to pray for wisdom, her mind on young Orion below. The Accords of Ashar are the law of the Archive, and the treaty that brings 7 great Dumashar together as one shield wall against the terrible jungles of Aratta. Even under the newer, more barbaric Arcanist interpretations of that ancient law, no doomed watcher should ever have to fear for their wife and child. But Erish saw the dread in the young Watchlord's eyes, and she knows something isn't right. And then I hear this quiet whine of servos and something heavy and metal shifting its weight. My eyes dart around for the sound, hoping to finally see one of these flying mechs. But I'm foiled again. This time it's the lattice between the silver columns. I can see a big metallic figure shifting its weight on the other side, but that's about it. But as I'm squinting, trying to make out some detail, I hear this strange sound from down underneath. It's coming from under the raised marble this monolith is resting on. It's like a low mechanical purr. The sound of tiny bronze spheres clattering to the wood follows. I see that young Indris shot to her feet. She looks astonished. I guess that sound's not normal. Her vivid hazel irises are getting brighter in the dark as she stares at the marble dais under the monolith where the purring comes from. There's a sharp click and she jumps. The purring intensifies and the murky liquid starts to drain away. Another moment, there's a bright flash that lights up the inside of the vessel. Then hot steam starts venting from the seams. Everything goes quiet. Just the young Indris' short, frightened breathing, and a few heavy footfalls. And I'm so intent on the monolith I don't even look back. She takes a slow, cautious step forward, and then another. Suddenly, the center of the monolith rotates smoothly in its wide base, and the vessel leans back, laying flat. A bright crack appears, a thin line splitting the face of the vessel down the center, and then the two halves fold away into a glistening silver tabletop, where a young woman lays sleeping on thin white cushions. This isn't the one I've been seeing in my dreams. This is a human. Or at least I think she is. She's maybe 20. She's got dark hair that curls around light olive shoulders. Her cheeks are high, her forehead low, and her lips are full. What's confusing me is she doesn't look like anyone I've ever seen before. There's maybe a Mediterranean or an Italian look about her. Maybe even Greek, but really she doesn't resemble any of these in particular. She's got this rare and delicate natural beauty that strikes me as completely unique. The young Virtue is creeping up beside me. Her breath is coming quick and she calls over toward the suit, and before I can even look, it's jogging off for the lift. Oh, for the... There's a soft sigh from that strange woman. The Virtue freezes. Her glowing hazel eyes are wide. And then the hand moves. Through the eyes of Arish, this young woman seems alien and strange. Not only is her skin darker and warmer than it should be, but she seems short and stubby. Even to Arish, whose GG blood makes her small. Why would the Great Mother look like this? Why would her body be so swollen and thick, even bulging? Is she strong despite her small stature? Arish burns with curiosity, wondering if this is some sort of celestial dwarf. I'm laughing myself. To me, she looks like a lovely height-weight proportional woman in her early 20s with healthy curves. Then two brilliant white human eyes with amber irises flutter open for just a second, before she's squeezing them against the dim light, as though she'd glanced into the sun. I can feel the young Virtue's astonishment at those eyes. She'd never seen human eyes before, and I imagine they look as strange to her as her own jet-black orbs do to me. But then Arish closes her eyes, lets out a humming breath, and things get weird. She's sinking into some kind of trance. When she does, the world grows hazy around me too. Oh, this is weird. There's colors starting to glow off of most of the stuff around here. Like you can see the aura of each object. There's a dreamy gloss to everything. And then that strange voice rings out. Welcome to the dreaming, Tom. What is this? Like augmented reality? You'll see. She's focused on the yellow aura floating nearby like a tiny golden sun. Then the windows darken all around the circular chamber. growing more solid and leaving us in a dim green glow with some candlelight, all in the space of a few seconds. The strange symbols vanish. The haze clears away and Erish snaps from her trance. Dreaming. What the heck was that? In the dimmer light, that strange human woman slowly opens her eyes. She doesn't move. Her brows are knit in confusion as she studies Erish. And then they flash gold, and the lights brighten back up. Well, Erish didn't expect that. Both women seem perplexed by the other. The quiet virtue rarely speaks, but now that she can, she's stuttering and stammering, trying to whisper some kind of greeting.
Oh, welcome to the archive. I'm Sister Erish, your humble virtue.
Her words just seem to confuse the Celestial more. And after some awkward quiet, though, she does try to speak, but all she gets out is a raspy croak and some coughing. Her eyes have cooled back to dim amber, and she tries again.
Taxiarch.
Erish is reeling. Taxiarch? That's the old title for Archon, the breaker of ties in the Ashar Council. Some of the other havens still use it. In the old ways, it means warlord or high commander. Erish brightens, getting excited. She's asking for the Archon. She darts a glance for the lifts, hoping he'll get here soon. It's all coming true. The prophecy. The strange human woman stares at her a moment longer, before her eyes begin drifting around the mausoleum, picking up the golden gleam again. The beautiful woodwork here seems to confound the Celestial more than anything. She points at the balcony with a question on her lips, but then she notices her own arm and just stops. She turns her soft olive-skinned hand this way and that, and then she moves the white gown aside, staring at her legs. As I watch, the shock slowly builds into dread, and this poor Celestial woman starts murmuring fearfully with a raspy voice. She's trying to backpedal as though she could escape her own legs, but she doesn't have the strength. Erish rushes over to help. It looks like the woman's going to faint, but suddenly her eyes flash gold and she grabs Erish by the arm, staring at her. The young virtue is thrust back into that strange ethereal trance, and the glyphs and colors are floating around us again. But this time I see a pair of thin ribbons of light connecting the women to the crowns of their heads, like arcs of plasma that wink in and out of visibility. In a sudden flood of hypnagogics, a whole world explodes around me. Memories of another place and time, another world. It's that same paradise from my first dream. And then just as strange impressions and perspectives start flowing, the Archon comes bursting into the room and I get booted out of the visions. I see the Celestial's eyes roll back as I'm dragged out of the trance.
My beautiful celestial bride, at long last.
The Archon's voice is ringing in my ears as the strange trance world fades, and then I snap awake. The Anonolith is gone. I'm floating over a glittering stretch of road, somewhere deep in the misty jungle.